For 15 years, Fatima Rahman knelt for Friday prayers at a small mosque on Temple Road in Lahore. For 22 years, Asif Rahman knelt for Friday prayers at a mosque in Karachi, 800 miles away. Neither knew the other existed. Then, on a humid afternoon in October of 1981, a cousin's wedding brought Asif to Lahore for one single day. He walked into Fatima's mosque for his afternoon prayers. She saw his face for half a second through a gap in the wooden lattice that separated the women's section from the men's courtyard. She was 15 years old. 3 months later, Asif's family sent a marriage proposal to her father. Fatima said yes before her father finished saying his name. 43 years later, Fatima Rahman stood on the family Feud stage in Los Angeles, facing her husband of 41 years in the third row of the audience on supplemental oxygen, about to tell him what she had done that afternoon in Lahore. It was a warm Tuesday evening, September 24, 2024, at CBS Television City. The Rahman family had flown in from Houston on frequent flyer miles their 3 children had pooled together the month before. Their oldest son, Omar, 31, a software engineer, their daughter Aisha, 27, a pediatrician in training, their youngest son, Bilal, 15, still in 10th grade, and quiet in the way boys who have watched their fathers get sick become quiet. Fatima's widowed sister Nazreen stood at the end of the podium in a pale green shalwar kameez with a thin silk dupatta covering her hair. Asif Rahman was not playing. His oxygen tank did not allow him to stand for 2 hours. He sat in the third row, in the blue suit Fatima had picked out for him 31 years earlier, at a J.C. Penney in suburban Houston. He had kept that suit pressed for every important day of their life together. The family across the stage, the O'Connor clan from Milwaukee, waved warmly at Fatima when she walked onto the set. Fatima touched her dupatta and nodded back. In the pocket of her blouse, folded into a small square, she carried a piece of yellow notebook paper. Nobody knew what was written on it. But the real story hadn't even started yet. Fatima Rahman was born in Lahore in the spring of 1966, the fourth of 5 daughters born to a postal clerk named Iqbal Sheikh and his soft-spoken wife, Yasmin. Her father was a good man but a tired one. 5 daughters meant 5 dowries, 5 proposals, 5 quiet nights of arithmetic a civil servant's salary could barely carry. Fatima's older sister Nazreen, the third daughter, had been engaged at 19 to a widower 23 years her senior. Fatima had watched Nazreen cry behind a closed bedroom door for 3 nights. Fatima was 12 when that happened, and on the 3rd night she decided that whatever life gave her, she would fight at least to be surprised by it. On the afternoon of October 9, 1981, Fatima was walking with her mother to Jummah prayers at the mosque on Temple Road, when the thing that was not supposed to happen, happened. A young man in the men's courtyard had just finished his prayer. He turned to adjust the edge of his kurta. Fatima, passing through the lattice screen into the women's section, looked up at the same moment. Their eyes did not meet. Only she saw. The young man was tall, with a short dark beard and the gentlest eyes she had ever seen on a human face. He turned toward the exit. Then he was gone. Fatima went home that afternoon and could not eat her dinner. For the next 3 months, Fatima prayed a silent prayer every night after the rest of the household had gone to sleep. She unrolled her small prayer rug in the corner of the bedroom she shared with 2 of her sisters. She did not know the young man's name. She did not know his city, his family, his caste. She did not even know if he was married. But she asked Allah every night that the next proposal her father brought home would be for him. She was 15 years old. In the culture of her generation, A girl did not pray for a husband. A girl waited. A girl accepted. A girl did not desire. Fatima knew she was breaking a quiet rule. She broke it anyway. On January 14, 1982, Fatima's father came home from the post office with news. A proposal had arrived from a family in Karachi. The young man was 22, studying civil engineering at NED University, from a respectable family of school teachers. He had been in Lahore 3 months earlier for a cousin's wedding, and had mentioned in passing that he had prayed at the Temple Road Mosque and had felt drawn to the neighborhood. His mother had begun inquiring about suitable girls from that area. His name was Asif Rahman. Fatima said yes before her father finished describing him. Her mother Yasmin looked at her sharply. In Pakistani tradition, a girl did not answer that fast. Fatima lowered her eyes and invented a small lie on the spot. She said her father had never been wrong about anything in his life and that she trusted him completely. Her father smiled. Her mother kept watching her. But the proposal was accepted. The nikah ceremony took place on March 6, 1983. Fatima was 17. Asif was 23. They had never spoken a single word before the ceremony. On their wedding night, when the guests had gone home and Fatima sat on the edge of the bed in her red shalwar kameez with gold thread at the hem, Asif had knelt in front of her and asked her, gently, whether she was afraid. Fatima told him no. He asked her whether her parents had pressured her. Fatima told him no. He asked her whether she had wanted this marriage. Fatima told him yes, because her father had chosen well. She did not tell him she had prayed for him for 3 months. In her generation, in her culture, a girl did not say such a thing to her husband. It was considered improper, almost indecent. A good wife was matched to her husband by the wisdom of parents and the will of God. She did not desire him before he was hers. And so, the silence began. Asif Rahman turned out to be, by every measure Fatima had ever heard of, the gentlest man she had ever known. He never raised his voice at her. He never spoke unkindly of her family. He saved money for 7 years until his engineering firm offered him a position in Houston in 1989. He sat with her through every long night of homesickness those first 3 years in America. He held her hand during the birth of each of their 3 children. He took her mother Yasmin into their small home in Sugarland in 2002, when Yasmin was widowed, and he cared for her there until her death in 2011. He loved Fatima quietly and steadily and without interruption for 4 decades. Fatima was carrying a secret that would soon change everything. The secret was that she had loved him first. She had chosen him first. She had wanted him for 3 months in Lahore before her family had ever heard the name Rahman. And she had never told him, not once in 41 years, because the girl raised in the small bedroom off Temple Road had been taught to hide that kind of truth the same way she had been taught to cover her hair. In March of 2022, Asif came home from a routine physical exam with a look on his face Fatima had not seen in 4 decades. His creatinine was climbing. His kidney function had dropped to 41%. By December, it was at 22%. By the summer of 2023, he was on dialysis 3 times a week at Memorial Hermann. The transplant team at Methodist Hospital put him on the waiting list in November. They estimated a 3 to 5 year wait for a deceased donor match. They also said a living donor transplant with a family match could happen much sooner. The total cost, including pre-operative testing, the surgery itself, post-operative care, and lifetime anti-rejection medication, was $287,000 out of pocket. The first denial came in January 2024. The pre-operative living donor workup was deemed not medically necessary given that dialysis remained available. The second denial came in March. The specialized tissue matching analysis that would have identified whether any of their 3 children was a compatible donor was classified as experimental. The third denial came in May. The out-of-network transplant surgeon's fees were rejected entirely. The fourth denial came in July. The post-operative anti-rejection medication was limited to a 90-day coverage window, far short of the lifetime the drug would be needed. By August of 2024, the Rahman family had emptied their savings, the retirement fund Asif had contributed to for 29 years, and the inheritance Fatima had received from her late mother. Their son Omar had taken out a second mortgage on his house in Sugarland. Their daughter Aisha had deferred her pediatric residency for a year and was moonlighting as a hospitalist. They were still $163,000 short. Fatima, at 58, took a second job. She already worked 30 hours a week as a medical records clerk at a neighborhood clinic. She added 3 weekend shifts at an overnight call center in a strip mall off I-10, answering customer service calls for a pharmacy benefits company until 3 in the morning. The cultural shame of a Pakistani wife of her generation working 2 jobs at 58, when tradition expected her to be home caring for her ailing husband, she carried in silence. And she told one lie, just one, over and over again. When Asif asked her why she was always so tired, Fatima told him she had trouble sleeping. She could not tell him the truth. His pride would not have let her keep the second job. One night in August of 2024, her youngest son Bilal came into the kitchen at 11 at night while Fatima was drying dishes. He had looked at her the way his grandfather Iqbal used to look at her when she was a child. And Bilal had said 7 words. "Mama, does Baba know how much you love him?" Fatima dropped a glass into the sink. She told Bilal, "Yes, of course Baba knows." That was the 41st year of her lie, because she had never said it in the way she wanted to say it. She had never told Asif about the afternoon in Lahore. She had never told him about the 3 months of prayer. She had loved him steadily and practically across every room of every house they had ever lived in. But she had never told him that he had been her choice before he was her duty. That night, Fatima sat on her prayer rug for 2 hours. She asked Allah for 1 more year with her husband. She asked Allah for the courage to tell him the truth before he died. She applied to Family Feud 3 days later. The prize money would not be enough for the full surgery. But she thought, and this was the thought she kept from everyone, that if she could get him onto a stage where her silence would not be allowed to survive, she might finally be able to say the words she had carried for 41 years. And then Fatima Rahman said something no one was prepared for. The game was close. The O'Connor family from Milwaukee pulled ahead by 18 points in the second round. The Rahman children fought back in the third. Omar scored a perfect survey answer that brought the studio to its feet. Going into fast money, the Rahman family was ahead by 34 points. Omar went up first. He scored 89 points. Fatima stepped up for the second round. Steve Harvey smiled at her warmly and asked if she was ready. Fatima closed her eyes for 1 second. She whispered something under her breath in Urdu. Then she opened her eyes. Her 5 answers came softly but clearly. She scored 111 points. The Rahman family had passed 200. They had won $40,000. The studio erupted. Omar lifted both hands in the air. Aisha was crying into her dupatta. Bilal was looking out into the audience at his father, who was beginning to rise slowly from his seat in the third row. But Fatima did not cheer. She stood very still at the podium. She turned her face toward Steve Harvey. She raised her hand slightly, and she asked him in a voice barely above a whisper, whether she could borrow his microphone for 1 minute. The studio fell silent. Steve, surprised, handed her the microphone without a word. Fatima turned and faced the audience. Her eyes found her husband in the third row, still standing, one hand on the back of the seat in front of him to steady himself, the oxygen tube still running from his nostrils. She unfolded the small yellow piece of notebook paper from the pocket of her blouse. She did not read from it. She just held it. "Asif," she said. The entire studio was still. "I have kept something from you for 41 years. The doctors have told us 6 weeks. I cannot wait any longer." She took a shaking breath. "On the 9th of October, 1981, at Juma prayers at the mosque on Temple Road in Lahore, I saw your face for half a second through the screen between the men's and the women's sections. You never saw me. You turned and you left, and I did not know your name. But for 3 months after that day, every single night, I asked Allah to bring you into our home as a proposal. I was 15. I had no right to ask, but I asked." Asif Rahman's hand came off the seat in front of him. "When my father came home in January and said the name of the boy from Karachi, I said yes before he finished the sentence. I let him think I was a dutiful daughter. I let you think, on the night of our wedding, that I was a brave bride who had submitted to my parents. That was a lie. My mother had taught me that a good girl does not desire her husband before he is hers. So I kept it. For 41 years. Fatima paused. The studio was entirely silent. "You are not going to leave this world, Asif. But if God decides you must, you are not leaving it without knowing. You were never my duty. You were the answer to a 15-year-old girl's prayer." The studio fell completely silent. Asif Rahman began to walk. He walked past his row. He walked up the aisle. Bilal rose and followed his father. Asif reached the base of the stairs to the stage, and he placed one hand on the railing, and he climbed, one step at a time, with his oxygen tank bumping gently against each riser. The entire audience had risen silently to their feet. Nobody clapped. Nobody made a sound. He crossed the stage. He walked up to Fatima. He did not say anything. He simply placed his palm against the side of her face, and he held it there. His eyes closed. And Asif Rahman began to cry the way older men cry, without sound, with only the smallest shaking of his shoulders. Steve Harvey set down the oversized check he had been holding. He walked to the edge of the Rahman family and sat down on the stage floor a few feet away. He gave them space. He waited. When Asif finally lifted his hand from Fatima's face, he turned and looked at Steve. He tried to speak. His voice did not work the first time. He cleared his throat. He tried again. "Mr. Harvey," Asif said very quietly, "thank you for letting her tell me." Steve Harvey shook his head. He wiped his face with the back of his hand. "Brother," Steve said, "I didn't let her tell you anything. She was going to tell you. I just happened to be holding the microphone she borrowed." A small, broken laugh moved through the audience. Asif smiled. Fatima covered her mouth with her dupatta. Steve stood up from the stage floor. He walked to the Rahman family and placed his hand on Asif's shoulder. Then he turned to Fatima. "Sister," Steve said, "let me tell you something. 24 years ago I was living in a 1976 Ford Tempo in Cleveland, Ohio. 3 years I lived in that car, showering in gas station bathrooms, eating out of trash cans behind restaurants. Nobody knew who I was. Nobody knew where I was. That was a kind of silence, too. A different silence from yours, but the same weight. Carrying a truth nobody else can see." He looked at Fatima for a long moment. "Your heart chose him first. Fatima closed her eyes. "That's a beautiful kind of silence, sister. But no woman should have to carry a beautiful thing in secret for 41 years. And no husband should go to his Lord not knowing he was loved before he was even met. Tonight, you gave that man the gift he needed for the rest of his life. You hear me?" Fatima was nodding with her mouth covered. But Steve wasn't done. He took out his personal cell phone. He scrolled until he found a name. He dialed. He put it on speaker. A man answered on the second ring. "Dr. Aziz, this is Steve Harvey. I am on the Family Feud stage in Los Angeles. I have a 66-year-old Pakistani-American man here with me on supplemental oxygen. Stage 5 kidney failure. His family has been denied coverage 4 separate times. I know the living donor transplant is around $287,000 out of pocket. Will Methodist take him?" Dr. Rahim Aziz, a transplant surgeon at Methodist Hospital in Houston, was quiet on the other end for 5 full seconds. Then Dr. Aziz said, in a voice that was already breaking, "Mr. Harvey, I just watched the last 10 minutes on my daughter's laptop. Bring Mr. Rahman to Methodist Monday morning. Every cost is on my team. I will perform the surgery myself." The audience made a sound. Not a cheer, something softer and older than a cheer. But Steve wasn't done. Omar Rahman stepped forward from his family's podium. He wiped his face with the back of his sleeve. He spoke loudly enough for the stage microphone to pick up. "I'm a match. I was matched 6 months ago. I've been waiting for us to afford the surgery." Steve turned to Omar. He put his hand on Omar's shoulder. He nodded once. He did not speak. Then Steve turned to the camera. He looked directly into the lens. "Everybody watching at home tonight, I want you to hear me. Every single one of us has somebody in our life we love, and we are waiting for the right moment to tell them what they mean to us. We are waiting. We are waiting. And one day, God willing, we are going to run out of moments. Do not wait. Whoever is in your life right now, you tell them. You tell them tonight." He turned to Carla, the head producer. "Both families, $20,000 apiece. Tonight." The oldest O'Connor sibling, a woman named Maeve, stepped forward from the Milwaukee family's podium. She crossed the stage slowly. She pressed her family's winning check into Steve's hand, unopened. "Coach," Maeve said, because that was what she called the men she respected. "We're a big family. We all got each other. This family's fighting for one man. You put ours where they need it." The studio fell silent for the 4th time. The crew began to cry. A sound technician pulled off her headphones and put her face in her hands. A boom operator sat down on his Apple box. A cameraman turned his lens quietly aside. The clip went up on the internet at 11:53 p.m. Pacific Time that same night. A stage assistant named Priya had filmed the final 18 minutes on her iPhone from behind the black curtain. By 4 a.m. Eastern Time, the video had crossed 78 million views. By the following Sunday, it had passed 241 million. By the end of the second week, it had crossed 361 million. The hashtag #FirstSight trended worldwide. In Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Malaysia, Indonesia, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, the United Kingdom, Canada, and every American state. Dawn, Pakistan's oldest English-language newspaper, ran a front-page article titled, "The Girl at Temple Road." Every mosque in the Houston metropolitan area mentioned Fatima and Asif Rahman in Jummah prayers the following Friday. Asif Rahman was admitted to Methodist Hospital on Monday, September 30, 2024. Dr. Rahim Aziz performed the living donor transplant on October 4th. Omar Rahman was the donor. Both surgeries took a combined 9 hours. Both men recovered without complication. Asif was home in Sugarland within 12 days. Within 6 months, he was walking 3 miles every morning with Fatima at Bear Creek Pioneers Park. Within a year, his creatinine had stabilized at a level his doctors called remarkable for a man his age. In February of 2025, 5 months after the taping, Fatima and Asif Rahman officially launched the First Sight Foundation. Its mission had 2 parts. The first was to fund living donor transplants for immigrant American families whose insurance had denied their coverage. The second was what Fatima called the Bridge, a small cultural program that paired older arranged marriage couples with younger couples across the country to share letters, voice memos, and quiet truths about love, silence, tradition, and the courage it takes to say what we once could not. In the Foundation's first 12 months, it fully funded 31 living donor transplants for immigrant families across 9 states. By the 2-year mark, that number had climbed to 78. Donations had crossed $19 million. Steve Harvey personally sat on the American board. Dr. Rahim Aziz chaired the Medical Advisory Committee. The Bridge program paired over 2,000 couples in its first 18 months. In an interview on CBS This Morning in January of 2026, a journalist asked Steve Harvey what that moment on the stage had taught him. Steve was quiet for a long time before he answered. "I hosted a game show for 14 years, Steve said. 14 years. I thought that was my job. That night, a woman borrowed my microphone and preached the most important sermon I have ever heard in my life. She taught me that love called arranged is sometimes chosen. Love called dutiful is sometimes desired. Love called silent is sometimes only waiting for the right room to speak in. I have been married 3 times, and I did not fully understand what love looked like until I watched that woman hand a dying man the only gift he truly needed. Not a kidney, not a cure, not one more year. The truth." On March 6, 2025, the Rahmans celebrated their 42nd wedding anniversary in a small family gathering at their home in Sugarland. Asif stood up from his chair, took both of his wife's hands, and in front of their 3 children and 6 grandchildren, he said the sentence that had been waiting inside him for 41 years. "Now I know you chose me first." On a warm evening in March of 2026, in the small garden of a mosque on Temple Road in Lahore, a 60-year-old woman in a pale cream dupatta knelt for the final prayer of the day. Her 70-year-old husband prayed in the men's courtyard, divided from her by the same wooden lattice screen that had once separated them on a Friday afternoon 45 years before. Asif finished his prayer first. He waited for her on a stone bench in the garden. Fatima joined him a few minutes later. She sat down beside him. She reached into the small pocket of her blouse. She drew out a folded piece of yellow notebook paper that had been carried across an ocean once and back again. She did not unfold it this time. She placed it in her husband's palm, and she closed his fingers around it, and she said, in a voice as soft as falling silk, "Now you keep it." Because sometimes the deepest silence in a marriage is not emptiness, but waiting. Sometimes a prayer, whispered by a 15-year-old girl in a bedroom off Temple Road, is answered 43 years later on a television stage in a city she never dreamed she would see. And sometimes a confession is not a sin being admitted, but a gift being finally given. If this story reminded you of someone you love tonight, do one thing before you close this app. Send this video to them. Not tomorrow, tonight. Type the word love in the comments below, so we know you watched all the way through. Subscribe to this channel so you can be here for the next story we share. God bless you, and we will see you very soon.